Okay, I want to talk to you a little bit about the beginning of Handmaid's Tale. Um, One thing that doesn't get mentioned a lot about this book is she uses words and phrases very interestingly. And I encourage you, if you have your own book, um, to underline things or write things down because there are a lot of great phrases. But I wanted to start with the very first word that's on the study guide, which is palimpsest. And palimpsest is on the first page of the book, and she is talking about being in the gymnasium. A palimpsest is in ancient times, people either wrote on wax slates or even on parchment. Um, Both of those were pretty expensive. So what people would do was they would either scrape off or wash off the original writing and then write over the top of the original writing. Um, and what historians have been doing for many, many years is trying to go back and unearth what's underneath the writing that's on top to try to figure out what was written in the past, which, sounds kind of interesting. But the way that she's using it, I love because, well, just let me give you an example. The high school that I went to was built in 1932, and there was one gym, and the smell of it was just, layers and layers of people sweating, doing some sort of PE class or basketball games or whatever went on in there, right? So that's what she's talking about at the beginning, how there are all these layers of smell that and history and everything that has gone on in there, that has layered up, which is very nice. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the shopping idea. That's a really great idea. We already know that our handmaid is able to read and write. As a matter of fact, you're going to find out pretty soon that she also knows more than one language. So she's an educated person, but the idea of the Gilead Society is to make the handmaids eventually unable to read and write at all. So the going shopping and having these little pictures to shop with is pretty good. And if you've ever had to shop for groceries in a country where you don't really speak the language, that's kind of the way you do it anyway. I mean, you look at the pictures on the cans or the packaging and you try to figure out what it is what the thing is, and you kind of gravitate toward cans or packages that you're kind of familiar with because they kind of resemble what you have in your home country. If you've been to Italy, the Italians have a great process where you buy produce where each kind of produce has a little code number, kind of like in a vegetarian store, but you put your produce on the scale and then you type in the number of whatever produce it has, and it prints out a little label, and you put that label on the bag so you don't ever have to know the word for apple or potato or anything like that in Italian. So that's a very innovative thing, and the whole idea of this book is quite innovative, although in the years since it has been published, the message of the book has been greatly not understood very well. The book is about a lot of things. And one of the main things is it, this person is finding out, what happened. Why did the Gilead Society start? And, what happened to her and how did it happen so quickly? And how can she look back and try to figure out what the hell should they have done? That's a really important message for all of us, I think, an important theme to think about, especially in today's world. If you just take the issue of climate change alone, how did we get here? I mean, what did society or business or whoever do to lead us down these steps to get to the place where we are right now? So she even says she at the beginning she's doesn't seem to remember a whole lot. And she even says to us near the beginning that she thinks maybe she's been drugged. And you are going to notice that as the book progresses, she's going to remember more and more things and make more connections to things that happened in the past. But remember, since we only have her voice telling us the story, we live in an age where most books, the narrator tends to be unreliable, that the narrator is not telling us the whole truth. And sometimes the narrator doesn't know the whole truth. But pay attention to that too. And then I wanted to talk about geography. Atwood is not very specific about the geography of this place. There are two films that have been made out of this book. One, an older film starring Natasha Richardson and Robert Duvall. In that film, they just sort of decided that since the Gilead people were very conservative, that what the houses and everything should look like were, extremely conservative kind of houses, old-fashioned with a big porch on the front and white sides and pillars and, a formal living room and all things before our Western style ranch houses. So, but the Hulu version of this book goes for a much more dystopian kind of geography where things have sort of been ruined or left to decay. So, as I say, Atwood's not specific about that. So pay attention to that a little bit. As far as the movies are concerned, the first movie, the one with Natasha Richardson as the Handmaid, they went pretty totally for sex in it. And she does talk about sex quite a bit in the book, but the more that you hear her talking about, the more you realize it isn't sex per se that she wants. She wants intimacy. She has no one to be intimate with, to tell little stories to. She's all by herself. And her relationship with the commander, obviously, she has to be very careful about how she acts with him. And she cannot really be intimate with him, and that's not really what he's interested in anyway. So pay attention to that if you watch that particular film, and pay attention to what we don't know. We're going to eventually get little pieces as to what happened that caused people to be infertile, but the actual thing is never 100% clear. And there are lots of things that we we don't know. She's going to talk about a lot of things, but there are still many things that we don't know. One other thing about reading it, and then I'll quit. There are parts that are kind of slow, and so whatever you do when you have to read an assignment that you're not particularly happy with. Some of you will love this book, but for some of you it will be slow. So, find a place where you sit and can concentrate and nothing's bugging you, and just go through the pages till you get to the more exciting parts. And I also have already said to you, Atwood has to lay down the whole groundwork for what the Gilead Society is and how it works, and put us in the context of this science fiction dystopia. And that takes quite a bit of time. Until we get to maybe chapter 6 or 7, we're really starting in on the plot itself. So, fortunately, in this book, some science fiction books, think, Lord of the Rings, for instance, you have to learn a whole different vocabulary for things. And this book has a little of this. We have to know what handmaids are. We have to know what Marthas are. We have to know what unwomen are. But there's not a huge amount of vocabulary for this particular dystopian situation that you have to learn. Okay, so once again, if you have questions, always ask me, and enjoy it, and do whatever you have to do. When I read things that I feel that I have to read carefully, I have to sit at a desk and have both of my feet on the floor and just look at what I'm reading and not be distracted by other things. Some people, I have a friend who can have 5 or 6 things going on, and he can be reading things in several different languages, but he's the only person I've known in my life that can do that. So most of us have to concentrate. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.